Hello and welcome to this briefing by the Jerusalem Press Club. I am Jonathan Beck, Director of Content. With us today is retired Rear Admiral from the Israel Navy, Professor Shaul Chorev. Professor Chorev is also head of the Institute for Maritime Policy and Strategy in Haifa, known as the MPS. Hello, Professor Chorev, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I would like to ask you about reports recently of a US-funded and built floating pier in Gaza. This was brought to the Gaza shores with great fanfare several months ago as another artery to bring humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. And there have been reports that it has not been very successful. The amount of aid is not great. This week, there's been reports that it's technically failing and is going to be dismantled at a huge waste of more than $300 million, and the Americans today have issued essentially some kind of denial that this is being dismantled. Can you walk us through the process of what building such a pier entails, why they did this, the technology behind this, etc.?
First of all, we have to see what is the narrative here. And I think that we found the narrative in President Biden speech to the nation March 2024. And the US is worrying about the human condition in Gaza. So they are trying to force Israel to supply emergency support through the passage in the land. It didn't succeed for various reasons. And they try to, and also from the air, which is also not a successful operation. So they try to bring in another option to do it from the sea. As you know, Gaza port is not operational, even though when we had the Oslo agreement with the Palestinian Authority, we recognized that the Palestinians will have a territorial water of about 6 miles. But since 2007, when Hamas took over from the Palestinian Authority, Israel put a blockade on Gaza. So the only possibility that the US has is to construct such kind of a pier and a causeway to the shore. And I think that the narrative is a political narrative, and they were willing, but they are willing to pay for it a lot of money, since it served their political objective to show that the US is supporting Israel, but US also is in favor of assisting the Palestinian population and not putting them in starvation condition. So they have such kind of a package, I'm calling it a package, and it belongs to the army. And I think that last time that they used it in Haiti, in what we call not an open sea. And they brought it from the East Coast. It took them about a month to arrive to Israel. And with a special boat, special ship belonged to the army, Frank Benson boat, and start the construction. So this is the initiative, this is the narrative of the US, and they put some kind of a number that they would like to have about 50 to 90 trucks per day that will come through this pier. To compare it in a passage, land passage, it's about, you can do it with 500. So it's not a figure that will give them support, but it is serving the narrative that they are supporting the Palestinian people with food, with aid, and all such things. So that's the narrative. And to construct such a pier, you need to have a floating pier, which is about 4 to 5 kilometers offshore, to allow ship, medium-sized ship, container ship, to reach this pier, to reload the container, and they need to construct a causeway. It's like a logo, causeway that will come from about 500 meters offshore to the shore. and the connecting point in the shore is very critical because it's not so easy to connect it. So they have finalized this project, and they have only 1 week to work with the ship that come from Larnaca and reload it to the pier, and the pier from the causeway and to the shore. And then came a storm that affected the causeway. 2 sections were disconnected, and the 4 units that used to bring the containers to the causeway drifted to Israeli shores. From the middle of May till now, they used the time to repair what was damaged, and what they mentioned, and that's from the 5th fleet, that they will open it within 1 or 2 days, and it's currently operational.
Can I ask you, this sounds very like a very complex operation, and even though it's, as you said, been done kind of over the back of the Israeli military as a diplomatic message, isn't there some sort of communication where the Israeli Navy told the Americans, these are not the waters to do this, this is not going to work, or even their own, I don't know, satellite prediction of the weather? Like, it sounds like I'm sorry, but it sounds like a massive fiasco. Couldn't they foresee this?
I think that they consider the Mediterranean Sea not like an ocean, that you have storms and very big storms. And they consider that during spring and summer, which is actually right, the Mediterranean is quiet and allow them to do such a work. But as you know, there are some conditions or some situations that for 1-2 days, to the people who are going to the to swim in the Mediterranean, you know that sometimes you have a black flag in the guard, and that means that you are not allowed to swim in the sea. So they didn't took it into consideration, and sometimes it's happened also to the U.S. Army in this particular case, and I am sure that once they have completed it and the condition will allow them, they will succeed with it. And as I mentioned, it's a political narrative, and sometimes when you are putting political objective and it is not exactly meet the technological or the technical aspect of what the military are doing.
Okay, I already have a question from a reporter, which is kind of a continuing what I asked you. How could they get the weather and the currents so wrong? But let me just, like the American Army, but let me just add to this. Assuming, assuming this is, as you said, a kind of massive diplomatic move, how many more dollars are they going to spend into repairing and re-repairing this before they take ads in the paper instead? Because it's kind of it seemed like a kind of a what's this called, like a mounting losses kind of a situation where they're like all in now with the spear. Going back to the US is also a lot of money, I guess. They brought it here and they schlepped it over. They want to keep it here for a while, I'm supposing, right?
You're right. Initially, they put a budget of about $320. Amazingly, when Admiral Cooper addressed the press this morning,
320 million, sorry.
$320 million US dollars. Amazingly, this morning or yesterday, when Admiral Cooper addressed the press, he mentioned that the figures are a little bit lower and mentioned about $230 billion. Anyway, it costs a lot, but sometimes when you have a political objective, you have to pay for it, and that's what I think was the idea of doing it, to signal Israel how important it is, to signal Israel that they are frustrated with the blockade of the land passage, to overcome the problem that dropping supply from the air was not success. Everybody is aware of what is happening that part of the supply was drifted into the sea. So that's political objectives, and sometimes you have to pay for it, but you are conveying a message that the U.S. is in favor of assisting the Palestinian in the Gaza Strip.
Okay, another follow-up question from the same reporter. Do you think this will affect the relations between the IDF and the U.S. Army, specifically the Navy?
No, I don't think so. I think that they got a very good assistance from the Israeli Navy with what is related to the sections that were driven, because it was peculiar. People came to Ashkelon shore and Ashdod shore, and in the early morning, they saw some drifting sections as well as some kind of an army boats on the shore, and the Israeli Navy assisted them to recover it and to bring it to Ashdod and to repair it. And I think that more of them. So I think that when you are speaking about collaboration, cooperation, it will not harm. At the opposite, I think that the Israeli Navy is supporting them, and I think that they appreciate it.
Okay, now speaking of cooperation, let's move a bit to a wider circle of threats. The Houthis in Yemen have been launching ballistic missiles at Israel for several months now in solidarity with Gaza or their general Islamist agenda. There has been coordinated American, British, and I think maybe other countries' attacks in Yemen against them, and yet we have heard red alert sirens in Eilat last week. I think once there were a few more times. So two aspects. First of all, evidently they still keep firing, and more importantly, at sea they pose a risk to commercial travel, which is a much bigger problem than just Israel's. How do you see this developing?
So first, you're right. When we are evaluating the food threats, one of launching a missile against Israel, it is missile, then the Iraqi militia do it also. But the most severe threat, I think, is that the blockade that they have in the Red Sea, not only in the Red Sea, but also in the Gulf of Aden. Since we know that 12% of the trade, the global trade, is passing through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, it affects the global economy. And I think that the passage through the Suez Canal dropped by at least 40%. Also, the reactions from, even though there is a Security Council resolution against it,
Can I just interrupt? What you're saying means also that Egypt has a very strong stake here, right?
Egypt has a very strong stake here, but Egypt, let's say, didn't support the U.S. What we call the Prosperity Guardian operation, and Egypt didn't join the U.S. force in securing sea line of communication in the Red Sea, even though it's affect their economy very much. When we are speaking about the revenue from the Suez Canal, it came up to $9 billion. And I think it's a very crucial part of the Egypt economy, which is not a very good economy nowadays. But in solidarity with the people in Gaza, they are, let's say, refrain to participate in such a force, even though they are part of the combined maritime force, which is located in the Gulf of Aden. But to more of that, only the U.S. and the Royal Navy are not only securing the sea line of communication, but doing what they call preventive attack on the infrastructure of the Houthis. The European Union, they have another operation, they call it Espites, but they try to differ themselves from the US and the Royal Navy, and they say that they will only secure sea line of communication, but they will not take preventive action against the strategic infrastructure ashore. So it's peculiar that the biggest, the most, let's say, the U.S. Navy is not able to defeat the Houthis, and they succeededly are doing it not only from the air, but last week also what we call SUV, not a manned platform, was or hit a ship, and they are doing it successfully. They are supported by the equipment or the missiles and the UAV from Iran. And there are some rumors also that the Iranians are giving them some of the elements concerning ships that are sailing in the Gulf of Aden. So I think that from geopolitical, geostrategic, and geoeconomic point of view, what is happening in the Red Sea is affecting the global economy, affecting the security, and we don't see the US Navy, Great Britain, European country solving this problem.
Okay. I want to ask a final question about the Houthis, and then another question from a reporter go back to Gaza. If nothing now happens, if it continues like this, basically the situation, can we expect a more concerted global reaction? Because Israel is not going to pick up the brunt of fighting Yemen on its own. I mean, how long can they do this blockade of the Red Sea before push comes to shove and Western countries do even more militarily or otherwise in order to, unplug this passage?
It depends. When we are speaking about Hezbollah, our assumption is that once we will achieve a ceasefire with Hamas in Gaza, they might stop their, let's say, operation against Israel. With the Houthis, it might be the same, but I'm not sure about it. So we have to see when will come with some kind of, let's say, agreement in Gaza, and how it will affect the Houthis, because they are not linked themselves exactly the same as Hezbollah is doing. And it might become a problem to what I mentioned, freedom of navigation in these critical areas.
Okay, thank you very much for this explanation. Now, I want to go back for a second to the Gaza Strip regarding the pier. This is more of a political question about the United States. The pier is obviously it's a money draining operation for them. How long do you think it's going to be there, considering that Biden is going into elections? I mean, is this gonna be something that can be kind of played up by Trump as a waste of U.S. dollars for for something that's a PR stunt or like a failed attempt to etc. Can this be used against him eventually?
Look, I think that Israel is draining the U.S. budget with other equipment, which is more expensive than the pier. So this is not the question. The pier, I think, is with all the money that they are investing to compare it to the ammunition, weapon, and all such things that they are supplying Israel. And we listen to our prime minister complaining about it. It's not the same magnitude. But I think that it served Biden because they have Biden have in his party, the left wing, and especially people who are trying to challenge him concerning his support of Israel in Hamas-Israel war. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize, the political aspect of this pier by, let's say, operating this pier. No matter how efficient he can go to the left-wing people in his party and say, look, I'm supporting Israel, but at the same time, I'm working very hard to get some ceasefire and also to see that there will not be some kind of emergency situation, starvation in Gaza.
Okay, thank you very much for this explanation. Final question for me before we end the webinar. Israel is experiencing and preparing for what may be a large-scale war with Hezbollah involving drones. In the October 7 attacks, Hamas sent also scuba divers. As a maritime expert, does Hezbollah have a strong marine arm, or should Israel expect to be fighting Hezbollah, not a drone war, but like a marine war in the waters?
I think it's a very good question, because you touch a point about the let's say how sensitive is our maritime infrastructure to threats coming from the sea. And I think that one of the objectives of Hamas with the naval brigade or naval section is to try and to penetrate Israel not only to the seashore infiltration, but also, you know, that we have the gas infrastructure at sea, and by challenging us with underwater, let's say, threats to the gas facilities, gas production facility, as well as to our water desalination, which is adjacent to the sea. I think this is a threat, and the Israeli Navy is consider it as a big threat, and the money that the Israeli Navy got to secure the gas infrastructure as well as other infrastructure essential, they are very intensively working to secure it. And I think that during the Swords of Iron war, they took such a preventive action to destroy this capability of the Hamas.
Okay, thank you very much for this explanation. I appreciate your time with us, Dr. Chorev, at such short notice. And as a resident of Haifa, I hope you're now kind of on the front lines. I hope it's quiet there. And I would like to also extend my gratitude to Iman Safadi, my colleague at Jerusalem Press Club, who arranged this webinar for us at very short notice. Thank you very much. Hold on, there's a final. Well, I'll ask this question. It's a final question. Do you feel exposed by the drones like, you know, the Hezbollah clip yesterday? Do you personally feel kind of more at risk today than yesterday? I'm talking about, obviously, the clip, which shows aerial footage, which is quite clear and alarming.
I think that from public affair, they did a very good job, because what is happening in the Haifa port, you can see it from the top of the camel, and you can take photos and what you want. But using such a drone, bringing it to Haifa and away back with this picture, it has some kind of a message. If you can do it with a drone, you can do it, that is taking also picture from his camera, we can do it also with some kind of ammunition. So from the public opinion, I think that the Hezbollah did a good job, frustrating for us, a good job. But if you're asking, is there anything sensitive that they got through the camera? I think no. But when you're speaking about propaganda, capability that can serve you in such a propaganda, they did a good job.
Okay, thank you for this. It certainly shows that they have managed to bring a drone this far inside Israel and back, indeed. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Chorev. This briefing will be available on YouTube later today. Thank you very much.